what are you doing right now to plan for that? And could we see a 2025 class of 40 guys?
I mean, that's a pretty high number, but higher than maybe we're used to. Yeah, I think so. You know, we are planning accordingly. I don't think any decisions have been made exactly how that is all going to shake out, but I think that I do believe we need 120 guys going into camp, and how that shakes out during the season, you know, I think needs to be decided. But you know, that 120 number has been around for a long time, and you know, even just being out there at practice today, you saw us go to 2 fields. So every team period of, I guess, you know, 12 to 15 minutes, we were getting 48 plays in, and that matters. Getting young guys reps, and the first 4 days, that's the way we're going to do it. The only way to do that is if you have 120 guys. So I think that's important. But in terms of planning, you know, you're seeing us, add some guys in that maybe in the past, you know, we wouldn't have signed this early. And I think that there's different, you know, almost tiers now. You know, you have, you know, certain guys, you know, that are recruited at a certain level, and some other guys. And you know, the best way I can kind of look at it is you kind of have the guys who, you know, in 3 years are probably ready to go look at the NFL and make a decision. You know, 3 guys or 3-year guys, you know, some guys that can make early impacts. Other guys that are a little bit more developmental. It may take a couple of years into the program. Some of those, by the way, have been our best players at Ohio State. So everyone's a little bit different in their journey for whatever reason. We want to bring in a mix of those guys into the program, but our number will be higher, and there will be a little bit more attrition than certainly in the past. So you have to be able to make up for that.
Right next door, Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Ryan, you're talking about the end of the season. It's almost NFL-like with playoffs and whatnot. How much does it help that you have experience, Chip has experience, other guys have experience, Brian's played in the NFL, just to have that knowledge of what it's like to play in those playoffs and late season games to help in this first year?
Time will tell, but like you said, you know, Tim Walton has been, you know, in the NFL for a long time, and you mentioned some of the other guys that have been there before. Certainly Chip's been a head coach in the NFL, and I feel like there'll be a lot of input across the board as we get towards, you know, the end of the season and what that means schematically. We've already talked about what that means, you know, a little bit in terms of our training during the season, but you know, I do think, you know, that experience should help because it will be different in how we approach it. But ultimately, you know, football is still football, and I've been saying that too. Like, there has been a lot of changes. And you think about the way that the season's played out. You look at the way that our teams are designed nowadays. You look at even during the game. You have coach-to-player communication. We have tablets on the sideline. So there's a lot of things that are going on. But the truth is, football's still football. Like, that hasn't changed, and we can't lose focus on that. And that's what being in the preseason is all about. Like, all that other stuff goes to the side. Put the football down. And let's see who can play with fundamentals and toughness, and so that's why we don't want to overdo it that way. There's still, you know, so much, you know, of the game that's the same that it's been for 50 years, and that's what we're focused on right now. As we get into the season, you know, we'll make sure we make the adjustments that we think are you know, appropriate.
Dave Biddle, 24/7 Sports.
Ryan, what are your thoughts on Tegra and what he needs to do? He looks like an NFL offensive lineman out there. What does he need to prove to you guys to, you know, seize a starting spot?
Well, I think the first thing is you show that you know what you're doing, you know, and that's the first level of learning. Is, you know, do you know what you're doing? And I know that sounds simple, but like, you have to know your assignment's cold, and there's a lot of preparation that goes with that. I think he's done that. And the second thing is, you know, how to do it, and you know, the technique, you know, the calls. You know, there's so much that comes with you know, how to do your job. And then can you do it consistently over time? Tegra has shown that he can do it. He's shown that he knows what he's doing. The big question is now, after going through this preseason, he's changed his body. Some he's had a good season, good off season. Mick's been, you know, the reports have come back good from, you know, Mick does a great job of putting them in tough situations, you know, creating conflict amongst the team, you know, putting them in situations where when they get tired, they have to stay focused. Because we know we're going to wear teams down this year, win games in the fourth quarter, and if that's our goal, then we have to be able to do that, especially up front with the offensive line. If he can consistently show this preseason that he can do that, he's going to find himself in games.
Front row, Dennis Dodd, CBS Sports.
Ryan, when and how did you get used to the transactional nature of what the game and your job have become? Money, NIL, agents, everything.
I do think a couple of years in the NFL did help me with that, but it's not the NFL. It's different. There's still so much that comes with it. You know, you still recruit. You don't draft, but you know, there is part of the game that is changing in terms of that, and that's where I go back to, like, every season you almost have to rebuild. You have to rebuild your team. Where in the past, past, maybe it wasn't that way, but the way things are designed nowadays, you have to be flexible. And I think the easy thing to do is throw up your hands and say, boy, this is just, too much, and I don't want to do it anymore. But I've used the analogy before, where I told this to certain folks, and I did my research about when they built Ohio Stadium 100 years ago, and like at the time, people were like, "You got to be kidding me!" Like over a 60,000 seat stadium, they thought college football was completely out of control. 100 years later, it's a different way. People are still saying the same type of thing. So I just think being steady in the boat and coming up with solutions. It's a great time to be a Buckeye. It's a great time to be at Ohio State. We're very well positioned. We've worked hard to be well positioned. We have to continue to be that way and be leaders in this space. We're fortunate to be in a place that can do that.
Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Ryan, you've been you talked about before the offseason that Carson was had in his development. Didn't see him out there. Just what's the update on
Who was it?
Carson?
Yeah. He wasn't here today because of an illness. Usually, again, I don't. But yeah, he was. We held him. Came in, checked in, but wasn't feeling right. So trainers decided to hold him today. We expect him to be back out tomorrow.
Bill Landis, the podcast, Kings of the North.
Ryan, we talked so much about Jeremiah this offseason. Mecca's got a body of work, and then day one there's Carnell Tate, who I think's kind of flown under the radar a little bit, making a bunch of plays. What kind of growth have you seen from Carnell, and how is he going to help this offense this year as he steps up into a larger role?
Yeah, I think again the limit for Carnell is through the roof. I don't think there is a limit to what he can be. He is not someone that you typically hear, but you feel out there. And he takes a lot of pride in his route running. He's certainly gifted, but he's very. I think that's the first thing that I recognized when he got here. Like a lot of precision in his route running. Takes pride in when he gets out there knowing exactly what he's doing. He comes in well prepared. He's tough. The guys in the team really like who he is, and he showed last year he can do it. And so, he's going to have to be a major contributor for our offense this year if we're going to